Hey, sports fans. This is John Kuntz, Athletic Director at Sussex County Community College with the Skylander sports scene. Today, my guest is Mike Rath. Mike Rath is an employee of the college here. He's our athletic trainer. He's been doing some coaching in soccer. He also teaches a course for us, among many other things that he does here at the college. So welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks, John. Happy to be here.
Why don't we start here? Why don't you give the audience here a little bit of your personal background as far as college and where you attended, and talk a little bit about your duties here at the college.
Okay. I actually started here at Sussex as a liberal arts major, played a year of soccer here, and then transferred to East Stroudsburg University where I received my bachelor's and master's degree in athletic training. And then shortly after that, I worked at a school in Edison and then was hired here full-time 7 years ago, back in the fall of 2011, excuse me. And it's been great being here ever since.
And you work a lot with all of our athletes. But most recently, let's talk a little bit about your soccer duties. A couple of years ago, you started coaching with primarily our women's soccer team. And we kind of have a unique setup with our coaching staff with soccer. Frank Bernacchio, the head coach, is both the head coach of the men's and women's team, and you kind of assist him and work with the women, and I'm assuming a little bit with the men as well. Talk a little bit about that and how that's worked over the last few years.
Well, we started coaching both teams around 2 seasons ago, and it started off as an experiment, as a kind of way to how we can get the best out of the program, best out of the athletic department. And so far, I think it's worked out really well. We don't necessarily view coaches on the men's side versus women's side. The way we view it is having our coaching staff available for both teams. So it works out really well where we have practices, we have 4 or 5 coaches available for each practice for the players, so we can really separate between goalkeepers, defense, midfielders, attackers, and then bring it all together at the end. So we have a lot more chances to really individualize our training sessions towards the strengths of our players and really focus on some of the things that we want to build on. And then that way each player gets a little bit more attention during practice, so it helps their personal growth and their playing growth as well. So it's worked out really well for that standpoint.
That's kind of a unique take on the coaching aspect. I know that it took you guys a little bit of doing to try to convince me of this method, and from what I've observed over the last few years, it's worked pretty well here. I was skeptical because tradition tells us that everything's always been kept separate. The men's coach is over here, the women's coach is over here, the assistants are with the men, the assistants are with the women, and they were not brought together. Tell me, how have the players responded the last couple of years to this type of method and mode of coaching?
Yeah, I think they've responded well. The first year was a little bit different, especially for our men's program, because they used to have Frank all to themselves, whatnot. And we had to work some of our schedule and kinks out. We learned as we went through it on how to maximize our time with both teams. And so the very first year, the women liked it because they got a lot more attention from it at the start, and the guys had to deal with a little bit less attention from that. But since then, it really didn't last that long, and then it kind of grew, and then both teams have really embraced it really well. And we've got a really good group of kids the last 2 years that really understand, the effort that we're putting in, what we're trying to do, and they're really open to, this whole experience. And we've found that they've really enjoyed it. We do our end of the year evaluations, both on a personal level with one-on-one meetings with us and the player, and then we also have an anonymous survey too that goes out. And so far, everybody has really, really enjoyed it, and they feel like they're getting a lot out of it, just because we do really try to focus on the player as much as we can. We don't pick one team over another team. We really spread it out. We now taken into account of making our schedules, so then we can try and get it as much as possible where all of us can go to as many games as we possibly can too, which really helps out.
Yeah, in my observation, I think it's they bought in. The student athletes and the soccer players, men and women, have bought into this system and have both experienced success over the last few years. The men's and women's soccer team have both been very successful. Region tournament finalists, semifinalists, conference champions, all those kinds of things. So the players have certainly accepted it, and it's worked really well over the last few seasons. Let's talk a little bit about recruitment. Recruitment is such a big thing for athletics. I mean, you need to have the players. You try and get the best players you can. And the soccer program a few years ago initiating the recruitment of international student athletes as well as local players. And what does the soccer program look for? What do you as a soccer coach and the coaching staff look for in a recruit, whether it be an international student athlete or someone from, right here in Newton?
Well, actually, it's kind of changed over the last several years. When we first started doing this, even back when I was in an unofficial capacity working with the women and the men too, we used to start just looking for the best possible talent. So that's the only thing we look for, right? The best talent. Can they afford to come here? Is it the right move for them? And then we've kind of evolved a little bit of that. We still look for the talent, but now we're looking a lot more into players' character and to their mentality to find out if it is the right fit. What we say to a lot of our potential recruits who we talk to is, for us, Sussex isn't for everyone. It's for a certain type of player, a certain type of person. We have certain values that will only align with, a limited number of players. We feel like we're pretty flexible. We can work with a lot of athletes, and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the players' values have to align with the program's values. And like you said before, with players buying in, you're not going to get players buying in if they're under different pretenses of what their values are towards the program. So that's been a learning curve for us. So we obviously look for talent and obviously in the right positions where, if we're short on a right back this year, we have to find a right back, so on and so forth. But we really are looking a lot more at the mentality of players and the character as well to see if they have, what it takes to, because at the junior college level is different than the four-year college level. A lot of the competition will be the same. There's still a higher quality of play, but it's such a quick turnaround with only 2 years max to have your players that, some players aren't looking for that. Some of them want that security of 4 years, going through, and some of them don't want to transfer when they finish, and some of them just want to, focus on the sport only and not academics. So we have to make sure that everything is aligned with what we're looking for.
How do you guys determine the character aspect of it, and the is this student athlete a hard worker? Will they fit here? Will it be a good fit for them? I'm sure with certain recruits, it's a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
But are there certain things that you can decipher that kind of tell you a little bit about them, their character, and them as a person?
Yeah, I mean, there's two main ways to do it. Obviously, the way we approach international students is going to be different than we approach the local kids or the in-county students. Because the ones that are in-county, we can invite them up, have them play in the open gyms, we can have them meet the team, come in for campus visits, and we can spend a lot of time getting to know them as a person before, we make our final decision and before they make their final decision. International is a little bit more difficult because a lot of times all you have to go on is just game film. And sometimes the game film is really short and sometimes the game film is really long. And so what we make it a point to do is that we like to talk extensively, whether it's through Skype, whether it's through email, but we try and get some type of video messaging going with them. So in that way you can, have a good interaction. You can read the facial cues. You can talk to them. You can talk to their parents. There's a good point that I forget which coach it was. I think it was it Bill Calhoun maybe? He said when he goes to recruit his players, first thing he looks for on a trip is how does the player respond with their mother in the room, type thing. And that's something we've really looked for too. How do they bring parents on their meetings with them? If they do have them, how are they acting with them? Are they respectful with them? Are they kind of just dismissing them? Stuff like that. And the same thing with our Skype calls. A lot of times parents will be involved with the Skype calls with the international students. So we really don't tell our athletes that, but that's one of the things that we do look for too is how they respond with their family, how they react. Yeah, with this age group, you're going to have varying levels of that, and whatnot, and kids not wanting to get embarrassed, or kids, that are really attached to their parents as well, stuff like that, because it is a big decision and whatnot. But we always kind of look for that a little bit. That's a pretty good marker on someone's, values that they have.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation to make, to see how they react and respond with family members in the room and what their body language is like,
Right.
and how they answer certain questions. Yeah, so that's a good point that you make there. You're listening to the Skylander Sports Scene, WRSK 97.5. My guest today is Mike Rath, who is soccer coach, athletic trainer, professor here at the college. And we're talking a little bit right now about the subject of our men's and women's soccer program. What else does Sussex County Community College soccer teach the soccer athletes here besides the game of soccer and the skills of soccer? What else do you try to get across to those student athletes during their experience here at Sussex County Community College?
Well, like we say to our athletes, to our players, to our recruits, if you commit yourselves to us and commit yourselves to the program, we'll commit 100% to you. So, and I mean, life isn't all about soccer. Life isn't all about sports. You have to prepare kids for life afterwards, whether you make it professional, whether you don't, there's going to be a time where you're not playing the sport anymore, and you're going to have to be able to have some other life skills in order to succeed at life. So I am speaking from still quite a bit of a soccer standpoint, but a little bit more towards life. We help them with, picking out the right schools for them. What's the right fit? Should they go to a small school? Are they ready for a big school? Do they want to go close to home? Do they want to go far away? What do they want to study? Time management with all that. And we also focus a lot on building leadership skills and building character skills. We're doing that a lot this year now, where we're having weekly meetings with both teams on, identifying yourself, because if you don't know yourself, you're not going to be able to really know what it takes to push yourself and what it takes to help calm yourself, So knowing yourself, building those leadership skills, building those character skills, because life's going to give you a lot of situations where you don't have control over it, and the game is a good teacher of that as well, but you're going to have to be able to deal with those situations, and there's consequences of those situations, and how do you get out of that, instead of focusing on the problem, how do you focus on the solution, how can you make yourself ready for life afterwards in the workplace, working, because everything where you do in the workplace, you're mostly working as part of a team. How do you deal with other personalities that are different than your own? How do you adapt to your bosses, to your coworkers, to your location where you are? So we try to incorporate a little bit of that with everything that we do, because above all else, your famous saying, student comes before athlete. You really have to make sure we have the most well-rounded people when they leave our program. We want our players to think back when they're finished at Sussex as being fulfilled, not just but being fulfilled, that they made the right choice, that they're ready to move on to that next step, and that's our ultimate goal with this.
Yeah, those are really good points, Mike. I think if to try and do the best possible job as a coach, the part of it obviously is the game, and being competitive and wanting to win and teaching the skills of the game and breaking that all down. But the other part of it, which is just as big, is developing them as people and productive citizens, and trying to help them reach their goals after their experience here at Sussex County Community College. And I think that truly is an important aspect of what a coach should be trying to do. Tell me a little bit about what you try and do for them after their experience here at Sussex County Community College to get 2 years of athletic eligibility. Obviously, we try and graduate them within those 2 years, and that can sometimes be difficult because they got to earn 60-some credits in order to get that associate's degree. But what do you guys do as a coaching staff to try and help them with their future goals?
Yeah, well, we keep in contact with as many players as we can. Obviously it's a two-way street. Some players are pretty independent, and they just go off, and like they're like the birds that fly out of the nest, and you won't hear from them again until like 5 or 10 years later. And some of them, they're talking to you daily. So we try and keep in contact with as many people as we can. Like I said, help them find the right fit for that next college. We've had a couple where they've taken some risks going to some other colleges. We thought it might be a good fit, and then when they get there, it's really not. So then we help them find like another school to transfer to if that's what they want, or any type of advice that we can give. We really try and really try to stay in contact with them as much as we can. We get to know their families pretty well. The parents, especially with our international players, like their parents will come over and visit with them. We'll go out to dinner with them and whatnot. And actually, one of our parents from Australia, her son played for us, and his brother actually won the Australian Football League with his team, this past year. And she sent us a couple things like a book about the entire season, and some good things that we actually took into our leadership training and added in. So, we're always in contact with our players and their families. It's something that we feel very strongly for. Once you're part of our family, you're part of our family for life. and we'll do whatever we can to help you out with anything that you need. We just got another kid that graduated from here 3 years ago, telling us that he's engaged and he's working at a fitness center back home, and he's like catching up with us and whatnot. And we it's not just us helping them. Sometimes it's them helping us. They give us some pointers, some good ideas, some things to add to our coaching expertise, if you will, some things to add to our personal expertise if we're helping out our students, whatnot. And so I think with keeping in contact with all these players, you not only help them out, but you're also gaining your own experience. So if somebody comes in like, hey, I have this problem or I have this idea and I'm not really sure about it, I can tell you this person went through something very similar and then this is what worked out for them, or I know you might not want to go down this route because this is what it entails, because you get to learn a lot more about different majors, different locations, different cultures, and it really helps.
What about the interaction between we've talked a lot about the international student athletes that have played on our soccer teams, but we also have a lot of local kids from local high schools play on the teams. The interaction between those when they finally meet one another and get together, I've observed some things. What have you observed in seeing those kinds of relationships develop?
It's pretty funny because when it first started, it was almost like like a middle school dance, where like people like the little kids on one side of the room, the internationals on the other side of the room, and they're and it takes just one to mingle, and then they all mingle. So what we've started to do since then was, as soon as we have somebody commit, whether it's on the guy's side, whether it's on the women's side, they're automatically included into our team group chat, and they're already put in contact with all the players, so they get a chance to know each other beforehand. So back in December, we had a girl named Chloe Bellerby just joined us from England, and she started talking with some of our returning girls, and then before you know it, all the players are messaging Frank and I, are like, oh, you don't even understand, Chloe's into like the whole van draft now, and they're having like this huge argument of which van's better, Mike's van or Frank's van, and she was totally involved in it, and then before you know it, then we have a couple other recruits that sign on, and they're in the group chat and they're asking about things. So it really helps with breaking the ice. So then as soon as they arrive in the last week of July, the first week of August, whenever they come in, they already know the players to a good amount, a certain extent, and when they're living together in the house, whatnot, it's pretty seamless, stuff like that. So I mean, before then, when it was just kind of like they would meet each other when they first come over, it would be like a day or two of getting to know each other, and we'd have to ask them like, all right, make sure you partner up with someone different today, learn everything you know about them, everything you can about them, and then they would have to share it. They have to stand up on the podium, so to speak, like, so and so likes this and this, and stuff like that. So you have to get to know each other, and we still have to do that, but it's pretty cool because you can see friendships that are being made for life. Like some of our former players have gone to Australia for a month to hang out with all the kids that they played with and their families, spend time with them, England, all that stuff. And the international kids will go to Thanksgiving dinner with our other players and then have them over for Christmas if they don't go home. So there is a really strong connection there. It's really, really great to see, and it makes it a lot stronger because I think especially for the local kids, they realize this isn't the next grade in high school. This isn't 13th grade, as they say it. And the internationals, you're looking at like, yeah, I'm really coming over for this college experience, and they're still getting that from the local kids, which is great.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch that interaction. I think, young people are young people, whether they're from England or Australia or Newton or a PacCon, but just getting them to break the ice, and have those icebreakers to get them to start to know one another and to discuss the cultural differences of players from overseas and things like that. It really is a neat dynamic to watch, and you guys should be credited because you've been a part of that, bringing them together, and it's really super what you guys have done with the soccer program here at the college. You're listening to the Skylander Sports Scene right here on WRSK 97.5 FM, your cruising oldie station. My guest today is Mike Rath, athletic trainer here at the college, assistant soccer coach, teacher of some courses here. All right, we've covered the soccer part. Let's talk a little bit about the athletic training part now, and injuries that you treat, and rehabilitation that you provide for our student athletes. During the soccer season, you're involved with that on a regular basis. On game day, we have an outside trainer come in and cover the game, so there's no conflict of interest as you are coaching. So talk a little bit about the treatment of injuries of athletics, what you've seen in the past, what do you try to do initially as the athletic trainer, then what is your role in trying to get the athlete back to the playing field?
Mhm. Well, yeah, it's I mean, we're fortunate enough in a college where I can do both the athletic training and the coaching. Our coaches have been great, being able to still work with them, well, not making every practice because, practices start from, they go from 8 in the morning till, 8 at night most times too. So the coach has been really great with that, and the kids are really good. And it helps being in the college setting too, where kids can pop in throughout the day and we can do rehabs during the day. So you don't have to, wait for a certain time after class, almost like in high school where all the classes are back to back to back. It makes it a little bit more spread out so we can manage the injuries a lot better and whatnot, and really work towards rehabilitating them to their full playing potential. And it's also great working in a college too, where every athlete wants to get better. I've worked in, middle school settings, high school settings and stuff like that. And there's always a certain percentage of athletes that are just playing just to play, and they kind of want to use that injury as a crutch, just to get out of running in practice or, whatever it is, a small minority of them. But at the college level, you're not really going to see any of that. It's kids that just want to get better. So they're going to show up to their rehab times when, you schedule it. They're going to put in the maximum effort when it comes to strengthening, and they're going to be really reliable with that because they just want to get back on the field. And our athletes have been pretty good with that. And luckily, we haven't seen too many big injuries so far in the last 6 or 7 years. We have the normal ACL tears and then concussions and some other big ones, but it's not as common as some other schools, which is nice. And a lot of that I think is down to the coaches and how they manage their players, and getting the rest and recovery, which is so important, involved in practices and training, because most of the injuries you're going to happen in training, not in games. So it's really important to get the rest and recovery, as well as sleep, which a lot of people take for granted. The more sleep you get, the less chance you'll have of being injured as well. And just warming up well for practices and stuff like that, which I'll help out coaches with. If they want to have a designed warm up that they're not totally sure on what to do, I'll help them out with that. We'll make it pretty specific for their team, which goes in a hugely amount for that, and as well as teaching technique as well. That's another big thing. So the biggest point of athletic training is injury prevention, other than injury recognition and management, because if you can prevent the injuries, then there's more time where the kids are having fun and playing on the field and being happy, so to speak.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of, especially for coaches, you have to use common sense.
Mm-hmm.
The student athlete needs to be honest as to what their body is feeling and how it is reacting, to try to prevent those real serious injuries, as well as taking care of themselves, as you mentioned, eating properly, getting the proper rest, and so on and so forth. I know that the life of a trainer is demanding. The hours can be extremely long, depending upon the setting that you're in. If you're in a program that has a football program, that is extensive as far as the amount of time that's required. But even here at Sussex County Community College, where right now we're currently offering 6 varsity sports, looking at adding a couple more.
Yeah.
So a little more workload to you, Mike. But talk about the time. What do you have to do from a time management perspective in the amount of hours that you put in as an athletic trainer and covering sporting events?
Well, sometimes it's almost like a triage, where you're kind of thinking like, all right, where's the biggest level of risk here? So I'll go to the highest level of risk, because like I said before, our coaches are great, where they're very understanding with the schedule, because the burnout rate for athletic trainers is so high, and it's not just athletic trainers; it's other professions as well. But you see a lot of athletic trainers don't make it past their 5th year or even their 10th year, along with that, just because you can easily spend 14 hours a day working 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, working practices and games. So the coaches have been great with that to help me with that, so I can still have, a little bit of a life outside of work and whatnot. But, it takes a certain mindset to be an athletic trainer as well. You have to, if you're not into working long hours and stuff like that, then the profession is obviously not going to be for you. Right. But, like I said, the coaches really help with that. And it's really just, like I said, you pick the moments where there's the most risk. Like if there's a a morning practice with, say, baseball in the morning, but they're mainly working on flexibility and a little bit of conditioning, you're going to maybe not go to that practice. Like in the setting that I am, with obviously if I was just the athletic trainer, I'd be at all the practices, so on and so forth. But then if they have a later practice where it's, like they're going to do like resistance training and heavy conditioning with stuff like that, that's when I'm going to go to that practice. Or they're doing live pitching with batters, that's when I'm going to go to that practice for baseball, because that's where there's more risk of injury, and also the whole team will be involved. And in the morning it might just be pitchers and catchers, working on technique and stuff like that. Same thing, with the games. If we have a baseball and softball game going on at the same time, I'll probably go to the baseball game and we'll get another athletic trainer going to the softball game, just because there's a higher rate of injury in baseball games for softball, according to the statistics, because it's a longer game, more pitches thrown, so on and so forth. So and you see it more that way. I mean, I would love to be at every single game, but unfortunately, with the way our schedule is, it's not possible sometimes. But yeah, you make the best of what you can in order to do that.
Yeah, a lot of decisions to be made by the athletic trainer during the course of their day. I don't think people realize that, because sometimes you get stretched pretty thin, and you have to make certain decisions as to where you're most needed, and things of that nature. One other aspect I wanted to touch on with you, Mike, is most recently, within this last school year, you picked up another role here at the college, and that is teaching a course, a foundations course. It's called. It's preparing students, for the college experience and so on and so forth. Can you talk a little bit about that course and what that experience has been like for you?
Yeah, actually, it first came up during last year's Breakfast of Champions, where it's an event where we honor all of our student athletes with a 3.0 GPA or higher, which is really good event, and all those students are invited to bring a faculty member of their choice, as a symbol for their academic success, and we all join with each other for breakfast. And I was sitting at the same table as Professor Deb Lanza, and she asked me, she's like, hey, would you be interested in teaching a foundations course, which is, the foundations course is meant to prepare the roadmap for students to make sure that they're on track to get their degree on time, as well as, teaching life lessons, so to speak, like time management and things like that. And she's like, would you be interested in doing one just for athletes? Because, it's such a different dynamic compared to other students, where you have so much more to take into account in terms of your time management and your goals. And, it's a little bit different, just like, students who are veterans are going to have different values than other students, so on and so forth. So we thought it was a really good idea. And, her and Dr. Baker were able to sit down and map it out and get it going. And what it's turned into something is really good, actually, in my opinion, because it's almost a chance for us to have like a student-athlete orientation, where they know all the credits they have to take. They have to know, there's so many things an athlete has to know, whether it's playing eligibility, academic eligibility, what to look for in programs when you transfer, stuff like that. The difference between NCAA, D1, D2, and D3, and then NAIA schools, it's huge differences for all of them. So we found that doing this almost like another little experiment, if you will, that ended up doing really well, and actually taking on another section next year, try and get all the incoming freshmen of the student athletes,
Right.
It's just to help them with, like I said, time management, goals, what you're looking for, eligibility, because eligibility can just be a class in itself, with all the rules and regulations that go on with that, what to look for when you transfer out, what type of school you're looking for, the qualifications that you need for D1, D2, and D3, because they're all very different, how to get your degree and how to schedule around that with practices and games, what courses are offered in the fall versus what courses are offered in the spring, because a lot of times kids don't understand that as much. You don't really get it that, A&P 1 is mainly going to be offered in the fall, and Anatomy and Physiology 2 will mainly be offered in the spring, and if you miss one, then you have to wait like a whole nother year in order to take it.
Right.
So, and it helps with the academic advising to keep kids on track, and it's turned out being really, really good, and a lot of our kids don't know what they want to major in yet, and it kind of helps getting their career thinking on track, stuff like that.
Well, you certainly wear a lot of hats here at the college, and you do a lot of things, and certainly it's appreciated by everyone. I know it's appreciated by me.
Thank you.
All the duties that you handle here at the college, and I certainly appreciate you being here today. So thanks a lot, Mike.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Skylander Sports Scene right here on WRSK 97.5, your cruising oldie station, and we'll catch you next time.